back. WNST out of the way earlier in the week here. We get all the residue from the weekend and do all that stuff. By the time I get to the middle of the week and the end of the week, I just want to invite friends and sponsors onto the air to work my weekly therapy. Bill Cole is in the therapy of fixing roofs commercially and, of course, all over the Baltimore and the Maryland area, as well as around the country with Fister Energy. But he joins me each and every week to provide therapy here because sometimes it's a beer with you and I. Sometimes it's a coffee in the morning. Sometimes we're in a suit. Sometimes we're, in Ravens jerseys. But you and I sit around and just muse, and we discuss the meaning of life in sports and stuff. So the fact that we're doing that here, commercially on WNST to promote your roofing company and Fister Energy, it's nice, but there are weeks when it's like just hot air, and then there are weeks when I need you. Like when the Orioles are a week into the season and the season's on the rails already, man.
I think it's nice that you call it therapy. It might just be two guys complaining, but whatever.
Well, I mean, I've done civic therapy on Monday mornings for the better part of 23 years after Ravens losses. I'm not in that world anymore because I can't. After watching my wife almost die, people do ask me about the format, and they're like, "Why don't you take phone calls anymore?" Because I did it for 14 years and it drove me kind of crazy at the end. I stopped doing it. I went back, and I just cannot be the guy that sits and listens to people bitch all day, right? So, I mean, that's, I guess, what psychoanalysts do and psychiatrists and psychologists and, I don't know, anybody who's a boss, right? It's part of life. Anybody who's a teacher does that, right? Anybody who's a doctor definitely does that. And as my wife has been ill for the last week, I'll tell you, as a husband, you do that sometimes. But boy, this has been a weird one with the Orioles, right? Like, I am trying to not just figure out the direction on the field, because I know enough to know how screwed up they are. It's kind of like the government and Donald Trump. I know what a screwed up, psychotic, demented individual it is. I don't really know what's going to happen today with our country or with the baseball team. I just know the people making the decisions aren't really good at it. And I don't know where it's going to lead us, but when it comes to the Orioles, over the last 90 days, they're letting kids in for free. I've seen no evidence that this is a good idea, right? Their crowd is ostensibly an Easter Passover kind of crowd where I would think, like in the olden days, taking your family to an Oriole game on Easter would be perfectly acceptable. Not, you're going to go to a baseball game on Easter or what? I mean, I remember many, many years where people say, our family's going to the ballpark because it's Easter and we love the Orioles. And I don't know how the free kid thing is working out. I certainly have seen the pitching. We're now a week into this on the field where they're playing the Astros and the Yankees. And the season might really be over already. I'm not conceding that, Billy, but it might be. And then what? If that's the case, and even if that isn't the case, I don't know what this franchise is going to do over the next 3 to 5 years. That if you and I bought it tomorrow, right? Like if Bill's uncle, was really rich and Ness and Jen hit the Powerball, right? And we buy the team, and we walk in there, a week from Friday or at the end of the year or during the All-Star break, and we take over the team. What do we do to fix things in the community? And that would be the same thing if we were Bisciotti tomorrow and he gifted you the Ravens and said, here, you take the keys, you figure out how to make these people in the upper deck happy.
Well, I guess part of my concern is the conversation has already devolved to what you're talking about. Instead of us, like, trying to learn the new players or being excited, you've already gone to, like, the July doldrums, and it's April. So where do we go in July? Well,
we're answering these really esoteric questions. Imagine your 8-year-old boy likes baseball, and you're trying to explain how Araujo and Nestor Cortez are Rule 5 players, and then try to explain Rule 5 and why these cats are pitching on a Tuesday night to a 10-year-old trying to understand baseball and trying to like baseball, right?
Yeah, but I don't know. When I think about being a kid, none of that stuff really mattered, right? Like you were sad if they lost and you went. But
I was a kid trying to understand why they won and why they lost. Maybe that's why I've done this for a living the last 33 years. Maybe I'm unusual.
every guy that put the uniform on was a celebrity, right?
Dude, I love Tom Chopay and Sergio Robles, right? But I did look on the back of their baseball card and see that they were not Earl the Big Cat Williams or even Jim Fuller or Drungo Hayeswood at that point, you know?
But I believe that they were like only a couple of bats away from being the hero, right? So
I did see Kiko Garcia win a couple of games in '79, so yes, I would agree.
Yeah, well,
I love having you on because it allows me to be a total geek and name drop all sorts of really obscure, Chico Simone sort of, name dropping, My dad hated Eddie Watt, if that matters.
For frame of reference, I remember getting a Mickey Tettleton autographed baseball and, waiting for him outside of 33rd Street. And at the time, that was far and away the coolest thing that had ever happened.
And, by the way, you were eating Fruit Loops before it was cool.
Absolutely.
Right. See, I can only do this sort of stuff with geeks like you and Enoch and, the old school guys, but it's fun when I do it, Somebody out there's nodding and driving down the road saying, Ed Norris isn't saying this today because he wasn't around here.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't know that allure exists.
Well, I guess that's the point for you and I. When I look behind me and I see my, my Oriole hat or my little Oriole bank that I have over there or my Oriole hats that I got at Royal Farms on Mesa Avenue across from Connolly Funeral Home back in the 70s because that was the one place you could get the baseball bank hats that you could eat the icy ices out of or like the ice cream out of at the ballpark at the Leaning Tower Pizza, that it matters to you this much and it's part of your life cycle, right? Like this week has been really – we didn't talk last week, so maybe that's another reason why I was off kilter because I was running around Epcot last week and getting leg cramps and missing Jimmy Buffett on Friday night at Royal Farms Arena and all that stuff. My wife's been sick for a week. But so, we didn't have our usual therapy last week, but opening day, opening on a Thursday, in the fashion that it did, maybe the trot show for me and the owners' meetings and getting off a plane and Jimmy Buffett and, maybe that was March. I don't know. But really, really weird for me that my head, even on Sunday, felt like on Monday it was going to be a special weird first Monday of April because of the national championship. My whole body clock's been off this week because of baseball and them not playing on Monday after doing it for like most of my life, right?
Yeah, absolutely, definitely weird. Didn't fit in your normal calendar. So I can understand that. I don't think that's too foreign.
But that's the impact baseball has on you, though, when you've been watching it like this, though, right? Like, all of a sudden, we're all falling onto our couch at 7 o'clock if we're the guys or the girls who are watching the Orioles and are Oriole watchers at this point, right? Like, what else? I mean, we've been sitting around for 5 months waiting for something to come on, unless you're a Wizards, Caps, Terps. And, we talk and walk about all that stuff. But it's different when the heartbeat of baseball begins and the team's going into a hole the first week that might just be the end of the season, right?
Yeah, I think that there are, fundamental changes in the game and how it's presented and all that good stuff and TV and all those things have eroded the experience and why we wanted to go. And I can remember, and this is my, when I go to the Oriole game, this is my check. Like, when my aunt used to take me and we would keep score in the book the whole game.
I knew you were going to say that. I almost jumped in and said, when you think of going to the games, you think of keeping score. Yeah. I taught my wife to keep score in 2003. She had asked me, her dad didn't keep score. She went to games at Fenway as a kid and whatever and liked baseball, and everybody in her community, all of her girlfriends, everybody she worked, they're the Red Sox. It was 2003. They hadn't even won the World Series yet. So, it was that. And she went to the game with me and insisted that I teach her how to keep score. And the first summer we fell in love, I taught her how to keep score. And one day we found ourselves at Camden Yards out in left field where I was wont to sit up on the roof in the cheap seats back in before the walkouts. It was probably it was late 2003, early 4. And she didn't have a scorecard. And she started keeping score on her shoe. And I thought, this is why I married this woman. You know what I mean? Right? Because she was into it. Now, I literally, other than in a press box, and I would be the guy that if I were back in the press box, not that I know what that is, it's been 12 years, 13 years, I probably wouldn't keep score in the press box if I sat there. I mean, I don't know that I would grab a pen and do it. Maybe I would for nostalgia because I'm sitting there and there's a desktop there in front of me and I'm in the press box. Maybe I would for nostalgia if I were somehow, if Peter dies on Friday, John sells the team on Monday, someone sane buys the team next week, and I'm in the press box 2 weeks from now. That's a hell of a question, whether I would keep score. I probably would now that you and I have talked about it because it would remind me of my dad or whatever. And if I ever got my press pass back, it would just fulfill my life, Bill, because I would be able to talk to baseball players again. But all that being said, no one keeps score, right? Literally, literally no one.
That's the therapy portion of our conversation. So what are we going to do about it? Like I am admittedly guilty of not, like I just explain something that is a important memory for me, and I have never taken my kids and attempted to teach any of them how to keep score at a baseball game. So I'm guilty for, helping create the concern and the issue that we're even talking about. So that's the portion. Like,
well, you don't have a pen, and you don't have paper, and you don't have anything to write on except your knee. I mean, I guess in the program they sell there, do they still sell programs, Bill?
I would assume they do.
There is a scorecard in there. I wonder if they give you a pencil. It's a ballpark. Peter Angelos owns the team. Mama Angelos is running the team now. I have a feeling there's a number 2 pencil. Probably one of those little short ones you got at the bowling alley, right?
There might even be an app, and then that's how you have to actually get the kid involved because they can do it on their phone, which...
They don't need to do it on their phone. It's done for them. It's kind of like if you and I had math in the 3rd grade again, we would just have a calculator. We wouldn't really need to, add anything up. There would be a machine that does that for us. I don't need to do, division and crosshand and times tables and carry the zero. You know what I mean? I don't know how you teach kids that anymore, and I guess that's the gap between old guys like us and, millennials and then, whoever my grandkid's going to be is what a ballpark experience is going to be for them. Why would I keep score when the app does it for me, Bill? Why would I do that?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't felt the need to do it either. And like you're talking about sitting in the press box, well, I seriously doubt you would do it unless you made a concerted effort because you'd have your laptop in front of you and you'd either be writing or taking notes, or, you would be filling that time.
I laugh at the old guys. Old Scott Garceau sits at the Super Bowl with one of these out, and I'm holding it up on the camera, and sits there and takes paper notes all day, and I'm thinking, the hell are you going to do with those? I take notes. It's called Twitter. What's on my mind, the observations I have about Nestor Cortez as he comes in, about to give up my boy Brad Pennington, the one where the neck hurts from the ball going up in the air, and the grand slam, and the memorable grand slam that Nestor gave up on Tuesday night. I'll never live that down. I figured I was first to get blamed for that. But, these magical moments that happen with baseball in April, they need to be more magical than your guy giving up grand slams, I think, early on to sort of suck people into whatever this soap opera is going to be. And Bill, I guess, off of the pitching and off of keeping score and off of our therapy, part of my issue in not sticking to sports, and by the way, I got a hell of a community lineup this week. You want my community lineup for week 1? Week 1, I've got Van Brooks. I've got the Casey Cares Foundation. Casey is joining me as well. So, I'm lining them up here to start the week. Oh, and I've also got Brigance Brigade. Brigance. Not the Baltimore Brigade, the Brigance Brigade. 2 different brigades we have here in Baltimore. So we're going to talk about OJ and the legacy he's leaving for patients. That's week 1. So thank you to you. Also thank you to Howard Bank and everyone. But, part of the week 1 experience here has been how empty the ballpark was on a Saturday and a Sunday for kids' opening day, for Easter. You could bring your kid for free now. And the ballpark was really, really alarmingly, and I'm not being mean, Bill, and I don't tweet every snarky thought that comes through my head or words that are uttered between me and my wife in our condo where we can look into the upper deck. But on Saturday when it was bad, I said to Jen, I'm like, no. It's like people take their kids on Sunday. She's like, it's Easter. And I'm like, well, every family in Dundalk and Essex that I knew, or Glen Burnie, or Baynesville, or Loch Raven, going to the ballpark on an Easter Sunday was like a really cool family plan. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know why that's not cool and fun anymore, but I was really, really alarmed, and maybe that's why 2 weeks before the season they're trying to get kids in. A week before the season they're blowing $50 million of daddy's money on a pitcher. Because if they start 6-13, which, they're on the pathway, Bill, right? If that's where they are 3 weeks from now, who's walking up and buying tickets? I mean, Bill, I walked up to the box office an hour before the game. They had all of the $15 tickets to get in on opening day that you wanted, literally. I'm not being mean. I walked up. A guy gave me a ticket. A lobbyist from Annapolis gave me a ticket. I found that he's for fracking. He and I are going to have a conversation. But anyway, I wound up sitting there for 3 innings, but there was $15, and there were swaths of empty seats. I'm worried about the franchise for the first time in, being on the radio, where I spent large stretches of the early part of my career saying, we're never getting an NFL team back here. How are we going to keep the baseball and the football team if this is what it's going to be right now?
Well, so let's talk about how much time we give the Orioles before we, go into full crisis mode. From a business standpoint, they're probably going through a pretty difficult transition with we assume is a pretty difficult person to transition. And I just saw something last week.
Let's speak in English here. You mean Peter Angelos' demise and whatever the 89-year-old man and the issues and the thought that he's not running the team anymore, because that is not my suspicion. I have been told that by literally everybody around the organization, that Peter is not running the place anymore. I've been told by everybody except the people in the press box and the people on Masson and the people that control the message. And I'm telling you, Peter's not running the team anymore. So I'll stand by that. It's not a news flash. It's not a Coons Ford text. But if that's the case, then who is and what are they doing, right? And this is a difficult transition, and it's a difficult time with guns and race and poverty and crime and the city and the city's issues and all of the above. So and millennials and all the issues that baseball has inherently. But I am a little. By the way, they've also got a $350 million lien that's in the New York Supreme Court hanging over their heads that, every one of their partners is against them on, right? Like in Major League Baseball, as well as the Nationals, that thinking a lot of money is going to have to be stroked to Ted Lerner at some point down the line. So I don't know. I mean, you and I don't wake up with a $350 million lawsuit hanging over our heads every night. They do. John does. Lou does, right? The heirs do, right? Mrs. Angelos does.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it. But the idea is, so I saw something last week where John Angelos is speaking at some event locally.
Really?
For the life of me, I can't remember what it is. I got to find it. But
I'd love to come and be a part of that. I'm Googling that right now. Go ahead.
So I don't, we don't want to be like the guys that pile on, right? We want to be the guys who maintain that inspirational hope and say, okay, it'd be really great if you people would communicate with us, because if we knew anything, we would give you the benefit of the doubt, right? Like if we knew that, hey, here's what's going on and here's what the challenge is, and, don't worry, Buck's got it and it's all good, just something, then I think our community, our people, we're super loyal and we love them, and we would give them the benefit of the doubt, and, people would support them, and the season would be what it is, and we wouldn't have to speculate and all that.
Hey, man, I talk to Seth Gruen. I talk to people in Chicago all the time. There is a framework for this. It's Rocky Wirtz. It's the way the Blackhawks transitioned. This is not the first franchise that would transition to mama or the children or the heirs or how to run the place. And certainly running Rule 5 pitchers out there every night, as they've done this week in losing baseball games, says that they're thinking about the future on the field and that they've spent all this money on the pitcher and that clearly the son of the owner is an ultra-liberal, soul. Now, whether he's competent or not, that remains to be seen. I mean, certainly he likes baseball and liked to play rotisserie baseball 25 years ago. I don't know how any of this translates to people coming back to the ballpark or them reaching kids or reaching people who used to come, who don't come, or people like me that have been so incredibly offended and abused over the years on a personal, professional, business, civic, ethical, what is a fact and what is a lie, and having to report lies. I'm in a whole different place than a lot of other people, and it would be something if I were the only one not going to the games. No one's going to the games, and no one's been going to the games for a long time, and I don't see them doing much differently, you know what I mean, or caring much, really, that no one's going to the games. But then they're going to have kids come for free, and people still don't want to go. That's disconcerting to me, that over the weekend, more people didn't take advantage of kids free on the first weekend. I don't know that they're going to do that if the team is 5-21.
I don't know that decision is based anything on the record.
I don't know that they'll know it's there, Bill. I guess that's my point, right?
That part's the truth.
I mean, the Houston Astros, their biggest problem 7-8 years ago with zero TV ratings was they started every year 3-9 on the road to 11-28 on the road to last place, and no one sits around and watches the games in June to hear about bobblehead night when the team's 20 games under 500, except for people that, quite frankly, don't get out much in the summer. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what the impetus would be on a beautiful spring night after my wife has survived cancer twice and laid in a hospital bed 155 nights to sit and watch a 23-48 baseball team throw Rule 5 guys out at an empty ballpark. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's so easy to turn the whole season off very, very quickly in the modern era in a way that in 1988 we hung in there and rooted for the home team and went out and got ourselves a halter top or a tankard or a floppy hat in August, and we knew it was actually happening,
Sure. There's no motivation, even for those who aren't disenfranchised or pissed off like you are. There's still just total malaise, lack of interest, no sense of urgency. I totally agree with that position. Like, nobody even knows that their kids can go to the game for free, right? Like, nobody knows that.
You really believe that? You think that? Okay, all right. Well, you were told once 2 weeks ago, and that's a long time ago in the news cycle, right? Like, that was 50 tirades ago from the orange guy on Pennsylvania Avenue. I mean, it was a long time ago, and yeah, maybe you know it, maybe it's there, but your kid's not hitting you to go to the ball game, and they stink this week, and it's a little cold out, and it might snow, and yeah, I'll get around to it. Remember the round two it used to give you out? They get around to it that you never get around to, and then all of a sudden it's June and the beach and the weather, and Johnny doesn't want to go down from Bel Air anyway, and hey, it's still $60 for me and the wife to go down there, and then we got to park, and then there's the unrest, and then we'll just go to the Ripken crab thing up in Aberdeen or whatever, right?
Even the way it was delivered was more of a news story than a marketing
than a promotion, than a campaign,
yeah.
right.
So if my kid comes home from school because the Orioles gave the schools flyers and said, you can come for free, bring your dad, like now the motivation is coming out of, somebody's 8 or 9 or 10-year-old, and it's an entirely different conversation. The way we received it was, whoa, that sounds weird. Is that really true? Where's the fine print? Come on, that can't be true. There's no way they're going to do that.
By the way, this is interesting because I was at the owners' meetings last week, which is why we didn't chat. By the way, Bill Cole is here, Cole Roofing. Tell everybody what you do, and then I have a story as to how baseball and football sort of relate on the kids-free thing. But give everybody a little background on you, because everyone's familiar with someone in their neighborhood that had their roof blown off last month, right? Literally.
Yep. Yeah. So we're just about a 100-year-old commercial roofing contractor. Started doing solar almost 10 years ago. Makes a lot of sense to put solar on your roof. You don't really use it for anything else. We mainly focus on commercial roofs, and I think one of the frustrating parts for me right now is dealing with the insurance universe and the windstorm that we had, and knowing that all these people are still dealing with that in our world today, that you drive around and you can see the blue tarps on people's roofs, and they're still waiting. And every conversation with the insurance companies is an argument, and nobody values it. And this is that time when you're like, well, wait, I thought I had insurance that would cover that. It's like, well, no, they cover that, but it gets depreciated, so it's really only worth this. It's like one of those commercials where you don't get the whole car or whatever. So it's a very frustrating time. Not to mention that construction's actually good in our marketplace, and everybody's busy, and there's a shortage of people, and you're trying to find good people. And,
you know how I justified it? I said, hey, we needed a new roof anyway.
Yeah, well, and in many cases that people can get comfortable with that concept, but it's still,
well, there's never a concept where you're thinking let's get the roof done this year. You know what I mean? Like, no one ever looks at it, right?
Well, but believe it or not, there are a few proactive, responsible people in the universe. But yes, most of us behave exactly the way you just described.
I mean, I have carpet needs right now. I have some optical needs right now. I think we need a new stovetop. Our refrigerator and our freezer's a little on the fritz after 15 years. But the roof, not so much. Roof, the pipes, things you don't see, you don't really, termites, you don't think about those kind of things, right?
Sure, until something happens, and then it's the biggest catastrophe in your universe. And, we appreciate that. That's what we work on every day, right, is being empathetic to people who their entire world is collapsing because there's water coming in from above, and we're not used to that. So we certainly understand that. The struggle, the challenge for me is the position or the feeling that people get, and this is businesses or homeowners alike. You've been paying for this insurance for 15 years and have never used it one time, right? It was just that peace of mind insurance policy.
And then you got to call them and go fight with them.
Exactly. And then
I'm familiar with this over the last 5 weeks, so yes, I'm very familiar with this.
Utilize this tool in your life that you've been paying for, and the experience is so, devastating, that you throw your arms up in the air and you're like, I can't believe that this is actually
Billy, I'm on the Facebook Live right now. I'm holding up the paperwork for my roofing issue here, and all 13 pages of all the stuff that I had to sign my life away in order to get my roof fixed. So God bless you and the folks at Cole Roofing. Bill Cole is our friend. He's at Cole Roofing. They're Fister Energy. He is our sponsor, of course, of our big event with Barry Trotz last week out at Michael's Cafe in Timonium. Swabbed some folks out there, got ready for the Stanley Cup playoffs. Billy is my sports fan, friend, buddy, CEO. If you have commercial roofing needs, make sure you find them out at Cole Roofing. I wanted to bring the football and the baseball thing together, Bill, because I'm out on the lawn at the NFL owners' meetings talking to a variety of different people, right? So whether it's Jeff Lurie, who owns the Philadelphia Eagles, in a conversation with Joe Douglas, who runs the Philadelphia Eagles, they both love baseball. I wind up in a baseball conversation with them. Last year, Jack Del Rio's there with Don Wakamatsu, who is a former Major League manager, now bench coach with the Rangers, and baseball is the conversation, right? So there's a lot of baseball conversations in football circles because they love sports, right? So I had several conversations with people over the course of time where I mentioned that the Orioles were letting kids in for free, and it was from a business standpoint, across the board, it felt to the outside like such a desperate thing, right? That a major league team in 2018 would have to allow kids in for free to recruit people, right? Because they can't sell the tickets. It's a fascinating approach to this, in the same way the hot dogs for $1 in Atlanta. And look, the dollar dog nights, they do that. cheaper beer nights, and the Orioles have some cheaper beer now. I bought a $4 beer in Anaheim 3 years ago and thought it was a novel concept, And literally, Bill, this stand at a $4 beer, if you went down to third base, it was an $8 beer. But if you went to this specific stand in left field and right field, you knew about it. And this comes from my travel, going to 30 ballparks. These teams are all trying ideas, right? But this is sort of like jumping the shark a little bit, letting kids in for free because they don't even want to do that in Bowie, right? Like literally, it's how you make money is like selling tickets, not letting people in for free.
Right, but we have a generation of kids who are now growing up and going into their teenage years or even their early 20s who played video games for free on the computer or download the app for free. Or, so free is a thing now that has a whole different meaning in our universe than it previously did. Like,
The Athletic is trying to figure that out in my space, right? Like by charging you for sports content. Like that model came to me 12 years ago, and it's like I don't think people are going to pay for online content, whether it's the New York Times, the Washington Post, maybe the New York Times or the Washington Post, maybe their favorite Howard Stern subscription or whatever. But there are going to be very, very few things. People are going the other direction and cutting the cord for their cable. I couldn't even get my Masson on Tuesday night to watch the Orioles lose. My wife had to go through 58 little prompts to get our cable TV working so I could watch the game because it didn't want to give me what I was already paying for. My son's pissed because he can't stream a baseball game. And he's paying for it. So, man, there's all these different models. People are trying everything, though, right? I mean, they're tinkering with the system, right?
Well, I think the rub is, so free devalues your product, right? So if you're willing to give it away for free, how valuable really is this? And, that's a statement to, well, our baseball team isn't very good, and no one really wants to come, and I guess the allure of our stadium isn't what it used to be, and nobody wants to come downtown, so maybe if we make it free, they'll come. And, that doesn't sit very well with me, but I understand it as a concept. And
well, Marty Conway was on last week, and we talked about it, and this is the studio audience. My wife and I went to see The Chew up in New York 5 months ago. We signed up online. We won the lottery. We were lucky enough to get there and stand in line for an hour and a half. We were lucky enough to go into a freezing studio an hour ahead of time and be entertained by a comedian for 15 minutes. And then the little light comes on and says, applaud. And we all applaud when we come back from break. And we all say, ooh and ah. And when the food comes out of the oven, we all act like we haven't eaten in a month, right? And that's all part of, right? What they want. But they're happy to have us. We feel delighted that we won the lottery and got a ticket, and it's free, right? And we probably would have paid $25 to do it, right? Literally, right?
Sure you would have. Right, and I think that's the challenge for them is we have a group of consumers who think everything should be free, and then we buy kind of like enhanced experiences. Here's my app. It's the light version. If you really want all the bells and whistles, well, you have to pay for that.
Dude, you want to know where I felt that? Last Wednesday, right? I was at Epcot. There's the right line. That's it, 105 minutes to get on. And then there's the fast pass lane.
Sure.
And you're there and you're feeling like, now what would that have cost me and what would my day have looked like?
Well, Disney, conquering that universe is a
well, when you bring it up, there's no better example in the universe than that, right? I mean, same ride, same seat. It's not the front row at Yankee Stadium versus, the last row of the bleachers. It's the same ride. It's just how quickly can you get there? What is your time worth in Orlando today?
Sure, absolutely. Look, I don't know if we need to totally dissect Disney because that's like a full-time job for the person, the mom who's preparing to take their family. Like every ride and every minute is planned out so that you don't end up standing in line for an hour. So
yeah, my son has the app that gives you like how long time is. He was texting me the wait times on screenshots on his app. And dude, I'm just trying to fill my water bottle and you look at the pretty girls and avoid the screaming kids and find a cold beer somewhere in the shade. You know what I mean? So such is my life. But, hey, and that's Oriole Park. We're going to find out. That's why we play the games here. Any thoughts, Ravens draft? My God, there's been a lot going on beyond the Orioles this week. We had a national champion up in Villanova. We had Sister Jean. We had a great story there. And, by the way, where are you going to be on Sunday afternoon? Word is the Cat's going to be hitting the Little Dimple Ball on Sunday down in Augusta, huh?
Yeah, okay, you just gave me lots of stuff there. So Villanova's great. It's really fun to watch basketball when people make shots. So that makes it wildly more interesting to watch. And, boy, I don't think I've ever seen anybody make shots like that on Saturday. Disappointed Chicago didn't win. I thought they probably should have. And the Villanova, I mean, we're close enough to Philly that there's a number of Villanova people running around our area. So, their pride and chests are out, and that's usually pretty cool. And, I've had a chance to hear Jay Wright talk a couple times. He seems like a pretty good guy. I don't know, you get leery of people in NCAA basketball world right now, but he's got a pretty clean record, and he seems like a pretty nice guy. So
guilt by association. I mean, he is a college basketball coach, right?
Well, just cautious, right? Like I get cautious endorsing people in that universe right now because you don't know what you know, and next week, the whole thing could collapse. So, but that was really exciting, and this is a good time. You come off the national championship, and you get to go into the Masters, and even if you're a mild golf fan, like. The Tiger thing is really interesting. He's kind of recreated himself now where I think even people who kind of hated him have to at least be curious whether he can take a run at it. And
it would be something to wake up on Sunday with some French toast and Tiger 2 shots off the lead to start the day. That would create good drama around here on Sunday. A good reason to sit around and turn up the telly and listen to the birds chirp and watch the azaleas and hear Jim Nance say, friends. Right.
I think I was talking to a friend of mine he's a pretty avid golf watcher and player, whatever, and his sense was you get the feeling like Tiger's going to win soon. Why wouldn't it be the Masters? So,
well, he does know the course pretty well.
And golf is that kind of thing, right? Golf, it works out like that so many times. So I think it's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, I never root for him, but I'm certainly not rooting against him Thursday and Friday.
I more than likely wouldn't end up rooting for him. I'm rooting for
the story.
3 holes to go and some guy who's never won, 2 guys who are,
trying to
hanging around, and then, maybe Tiger, and there's like a race to the finish, and that makes it exciting where every shot matters. And, and the best part is, wow, he just put that in the trees. Like, I know how to do that. So, even the greatest guys, they're doing the same stuff because the pressure comes in, and then all of a sudden they start flying the ball over the place, and that's when you kind of feel like, they're not perfect, so that's good.
I just hope the weather holds up and we get a good weekend for Masters. He is Bill Cole. He's at Cole Roofing as well as at Pfister Energy, sponsoring all of our community and charity series beginning on Thursday with Van Brooks, with Casey Cares, and with the Brigance Brigade for the first week of April. We'll be doing that each and every Thursday. If you got a charity out there or 501c3 that you want to promote, toss me an email, nasty@WNST.net. I'm also out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. Further on up the road, Bill Cole, we will see you next week for some more sports civic therapy. I hope the Orioles perform a little better at Yankee Stadium this weekend to give us something to talk about, as Bonnie Raitt once said, right?
I enjoyed it. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Bill Cole's out of Cole Roofing. He fixes roofs commercially, corporately, big roofs, maybe your roof. And if you're rethinking that space, you definitely want to get in touch with him at Cole Roofing. You can toss me a note, and I will put you in touch with Bill as well. You can find me also Anytime, anywhere in your email inbox. At 7 a.m., we deliver that morning newspaper to you. It's all delivered digitally via our friends at Planet Fitness at planetfitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. It also includes the Laurel entries for the weekend, and, of course, the Preakness, the Black Eyed Susan, the Pink Day, all that stuff coming up in the next 6 weeks. We'll be talking about that even more here at WNST.net with my pal Stan Salter. I'm going to chase down Bob Baffert before the end of the month as well to talk about Justify. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Taos in Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.